Most lawyers I know didn't walk into the Escambia County Courthouse like that. That would have been a tough few minutes in front of the bench had we ever done that. Willie,
that's just not the worst thing that happened at the event.
Right. No. We're talking about lawyers. So, Willie, I wanted to ask you really quickly, just following up, and this is, I'm serious. So about this, the Barnacle boys did a great comeback thing in 2004 about the Red Sox coming back from being down 3-0. And, you always question, can it happen, can it not happen? I remember talking to Mike in real time, and Millar in their documentary saying, you don't want us to win tonight.
That's right.
You don't want us to. You let us win tonight, there's going to be trouble. They believe that. I guess the question is, with Aaron Judge struggling the way he is, do you think the Yankees are the type of team that believe that and can do that? Because baseball, it's weird. You start hitting one night. I remember the Braves were ahead of the Yankees 2-0, beat them twice in Yankee Stadium in 1996. And Furman Bishop, the great Atlanta sports writer, started comparing the Braves to the 27 Yankees. We then lost 4 in a row. So anything can happen in baseball. You get hot. If your team believes, like the Red Sox did in 2004, anything can happen. What about the character of the Yankees team? Do you think they've got it in them?
I think they believe that Aaron Judge cannot continue to play like this. He's going to have to break out of it at some point, although it's been a long postseason of this, and there's the pattern is there. But I'm an eternal optimist, so I always think, all right, you win tonight against their bullpen. Now it's 3-1. You got Garrett Cole going.
Cole tomorrow night.
Exactly, in Game 5. Okay, now it's 3-2 maybe if you get a great Garrett Cole game and Judge wakes up in these next 2 games at home. And then anything can happen when you got it in L.A. It's a long road. I think 3-1 is a little more manageable mentally because then you go, all right, you steal Game 6, anything happens in a Game 7. Right. But, there's a reason no one's ever done it before in a World Series, and only one team in the history of the sport has ever done it in any series, the 2004 Boston Red Sox. So it's an uphill climb. It's unlikely. You wouldn't bet on it. But I do think if Judge wakes up and those other 3 guys continue to hit the way they've hit, they got a fighting chance certainly tonight and tomorrow night, and then we'll see what happens in L.A.
Right, because the thing is, let's say they steal one tonight, a bullpen win. Tomorrow night, they've got Garrett Cole, who's gonna go as long into the game as he can go. And then at that point, anything really can happen. And for the Dodgers, you really did get a performance out of Yamamoto and Buehler that nobody expected. Are they going to be able to do that again 3 nights from now, 4 nights from now? Kind of questionable. We'll see, though. Anything is possible. Hope springs eternal. Yes, and on that happy news, Mika, let's turn it over to cheerful,
I appreciate the
cheerful news out of politics.
Okay, so we're going to get to the news. We just have a lot to get to at this point. Marty Baron, the former executive editor of the Washington Post, is going to be joining us, as well as the head of Harris' campaign, Jen O'Malley Dillon, that in just next few minutes. So we start right now with new reporting that Sunday's rally at Madison Square Garden was not the first time comedian Tony Hinchcliffe made a racist joke about Puerto Rico. That wasn't something off the cuff. It was planned. According to an NBC News producer and 3 other people who happened to be in the audience, Hinchcliffe workshopped the material Saturday night at a New York City comedy club. They say the joke about Puerto Rico being a floating pile of garbage did not draw laughs, just a handful of awkward chuckles. Hinchcliffe told the audience multiple times during his routine that he would get a better reaction, quote, tomorrow at the rally. J.D. Vance, who spoke at Sunday's rally, was asked about it last night while campaigning in Wisconsin.
I haven't seen the joke. Maybe it's a stupid racist joke, as you said. Maybe it's not. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the joke. But I think that we have to stop getting so offended at every little thing in the United States of America. I'm so over it.
So, Claire McCaskill, just on J.D. Vance's reaction there, first of all, it is palpable that members of the Puerto Rican American community are extremely upset about this joke. I have not met one person, Puerto Rican American or from any other area in the country who thought that joke was funny and did not find it to be painful and disturbing. So what do you make of J.D. Vance's, I didn't see it, and hey, come on, chill out, guys, take a joke?
Well, he's learned to lie as easily as Trump does, because clearly he's seen it. I mean, you couldn't be in America and even halfway paying attention to the election. I figure he is, right? He's on the ballot. So he lied about that. You know, and the thing that's really interesting about this, Mika, we've spent a lot of time over the last decade talking about the failure of Republican leadership to address who Trump is and how he has behaved. But let's think about this for a minute. This joke is made, and then hours afterwards, the Trump campaign says that they distance themselves. Not Trump. He's never said a word about it. They distance themselves from the joke. And then finally, Republicans speak out. But guess which Republicans speak out? Those that have a connection to Puerto Rico. The elected officials in Florida that have family in Puerto Rico or are from Puerto Rico. And remember, a lot of Trump supporters don't know this. Everyone in Puerto Rico is American, guys. They are Americans. These are the ones that Stephen Miller is referring to, Americans. But what about the rest of the Republican Party? What, they think it's okay to denigrate Puerto Ricans like this? Where are the leaders? Where's Mike Johnson, the guy that supposedly reads the Bible about the least among us and taking care of your fellow man and loving others like you want to love yourself and treating others like you want to be treated? Where are the leaders of the Republican Party on this issue of this awful way that Puerto Rico was denigrated by the Trump campaign on Sunday? It's interesting to me the only ones who've spoken out have some connection to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, you know, Willie, following up on the question about where these so-called evangelical leaders who say they are guided by the Bible, you look at the story of the Good Samaritan. And the story of the Good Samaritan follows Jesus being asked when he says, love your neighbor as yourself. They say, well, who's my neighbor? And Jesus talks to an audience, somebody who's considered an enemy, the Samaritan. And shows how the Samaritan helps one who is not, who is another and who is a despised other. And Jesus said, that is who your neighbor is. Your neighbor is a person that you even don't like, that you consider to be your enemy. That is who you are to help. And unfortunately, when Mike Johnson and other people who claim to be guided by the Bible lie for Donald Trump, brush these things aside for Donald Trump. When J.D. Vance, who said no Christian should vote for Donald Trump in 2016, the same year he said he thought maybe that he was America's Hitler or something like that. I don't know exactly how they deal with the cognitive dissonance of that, saying one thing one day and the next day forgiving racist jokes about Puerto Ricans, about black people, about all the, quote, others.
Yeah, and we see it time and again, as you've said many times over the last several years. Many evangelicals have been detached from the word of the Bible and are seeking power, proximity to it in Donald Trump, and whatever he does, they look the other way because they view him as the anointed one, or at least the one who will get them what they want in terms of politics and power. And Peter Baker, as we look at those comments from Madison Square Garden, they knew who they were booking in this comedian. You can go back and look at his past, what kind of comic he is, insulting people and everything else. This is the culture, and we heard it in J.D. Vance's response, that they're kind of running on in a way, which is you don't have to apologize for stuff anymore. Political correctness is out the door. Your hands aren't tied. You can say the thing you have been told you're not allowed to say anymore. This is what it's going to be like under Donald Trump. And then there's, of course, the electoral aspect of this. There are nearly 500,000 Puerto Rican Americans in the state of Pennsylvania alone. Think about that. In the state that each candidate desperately needs to win, nearly 500,000 Puerto Rican Americans live there now and have votes.
Yeah, I think you're right, absolutely, Willie. And I think the point is, I was at Madison Square Garden on Sunday, and what struck me was that this comic obviously was the more extreme version of what was happening. But he's the only one whose comments were disavowed by the Trump campaign. And there were plenty of other people who speaking that evening, who said things that would normally be out of bounds in politics, using all kinds of profanity, insulting Palestinians, insulting people transgender, insulting Democrats, insulting, chanting tampon Tim about Tim Walz, and so on and so forth. And you're right to say that I think that this is actually the message. The message is we are liberated from the shackles of wokedom, of political correctness. Tucker Carlson basically said that from the stage. He says that Donald Trump has liberated us from having to tell the lies. That was his phrase. And I think by the lies, what he means are that, that we are basically nice to other people, that we don't, in fact, that we are not allowed to denigrate other people on the basis of their, ethnicity, nationality, religion, all those things. And you heard it time and time again from speaker after speaker. That was really striking. One thing, though, that's really important to remember about Puerto Rico specifically is there's a history here. Donald Trump was president for 4 years, which we often seem to forget. And while he was president, he was the one who actually went to war in some ways with Puerto Rico after 2 hurricanes. He was so mad at the mayor of San Juan for not showing proper deference that he wanted to pull aid from hurricane victims. He talked in private with his aides about selling Puerto Rico. Didn't even seem to know, by the way, that Puerto Rico is an American, it's part of the United States, Mika, to your point, that they are Americans. He, in fact, talked about trading Puerto Rico for Greenland. Let's get some of those people from Greenland who are not, well, let's say, Puerto Ricans. And all of that is history here when we talk about the Trump campaign's point of view when it comes to Puerto Rico.
And if I could add to your list, the infamous moment when he was throwing paper towels at victims of a natural disaster, throwing them, chucking them. Molly Jong-Fast, your piece is "This Country Can Break Your Heart." Yeah. My heart is broken already, but let's go. Tell us about it.
I mean, so, this is a country based on a premise, right? America is a country based on the idea that we can come here. And my great-grandparents came here from the Odessa pogroms in the 1800s, and they were offered a shining city on the hill. And this is not partisan rhetoric, right? These are the words of Ronald Reagan, Republicans' favorite president, right? And George W. Bush. I mean, these guys talked about America as a place where you could come if you were in darkness, like my relatives who were being murdered in Odessa, and they came to this country. And so this is the idea of America. And what we see in Trumpism is that they no longer want to offer that America, right?
Yeah. I wonder what Ronald Reagan article would say today and what George W. Bush is thinking today. I'd love to know.
I think the country would love to know what George W. Bush is thinking today. Joe, that's an interesting aspect that Mika just raised. The number of Republicans who have spoken out against Donald Trump's candidacy, it really is kind of minimal when you look at the parade of characters. But George W. Bush, I mean, his voice would really, really mean something in this. And I can't believe that he and his family are sitting there tolerating the idea of voting for Donald J. Trump.
Well, I think over the past 8 or 9 years, they could say in many circumstances, hey, if I came out against Donald Trump, I'd only make him stronger with the base. And that would be true in many respects. But not today. Not when there are